Welcome to Seeking Numina. I am your host, Elise Wells, and this is the Sacred Places podcast. Today, I am joined by author and fairy expert Morgan Daimler, and we're going to be discussing fairies, all things fairies, how they function as spirits of place, and maybe a little bit how they're more complex than even that. Morgan Daimler is a blogger, poet, teacher of esoteric subjects, witch, and priestess of the Thena Maha. Morgan is a prolific pagan writer, having published more than a dozen books under Moon Books alone, and she is one of the world's foremost experts on all things fairy. You can find her on all the socials at Morgan Daimler and also on Moon Books' website to go purchase those books. So, thank you for joining me here.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome to Seeking Numina. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and I invite you to connect with the sacred wild within and around you through Numina, or sacred sites around the world, and the wisdom they hold. Together, let's remember the old ways, build relationships with land spirits, and dare to reach out to the fairies. The sacred wild is inviting you to dance in the moonlight. Will you answer their call? So maybe this is a good place to start. When did fairies first, get into your life? Like when did you, or maybe when did you first get into theirs?
So that's a good question. I don't know for sure. I have always had interactions. I have something, it's the Irish refer to as second sight. It's like spirit sight, seeing spirits, things like that. And even when I was very young, I would tell my parents all the time, like, oh, I have fairy friends. I want to do this on my windowsill for my fairy friends. And luckily for me, because my parents were not super religious people, or at least actively religious people, they didn't argue, they didn't discourage it. My dad's side of the family is, I was going to say, is part of the Irish American diaspora. It's a little more complicated than that, but my dad's stepfather was from Ireland. So I grew up with a lot of the beliefs, or at least the idea of the possibility of these things. I have a pretty early memory when I was about 5 years old of being in my room at night and really scared because the way the shadows were coming in the window. And, when you're five, like, doesn't take much to freak you out. And having a red-headed woman sit next to my bed, a woman, a fairy, not a human, and just telling me that it was going to be okay, and reassuring me. And that like I said, I was five. So I would say probably a long time. I've had them around and had stuff going on. And I got into the studying it and the folklore almost as self-defense because, when you have these things around you, you have things happening, you need some kind of context for them. And, Irish diaspora or not, the US is not a place that's in popular culture really has an understanding of these things. So, yeah. And then I ended up here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's interesting. I relate to that actually. When I first was aware that it was the same thing, but it was ghosts. Like it was like these
Mhm.
residual ghosts. And for anyone curious, I won't go into the whole story here, but I share the full story on the Cosmic Theater Mystery School podcast, which is I have a podcast that's like the intersection of the paranormal investigation world with the spirit world.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, right? Like not enough of that. And it's really weird because it's the same thing, but they approach
Yeah.
it so differently. And like anyway, in that podcast, the first episode, I go into this full story. But yeah, it was these Native American ghosts, and I would see them in my
Mm,
bedroom, and they would just walk by, and they would never acknowledge me. And at first, I was scared. And then I would tell my parents, and they'd be like, "Just go to bed. You're having bad dreams." I'm like, "No, I'm not." Like I never
yeah.
took anyone's. If I knew my truth, I never took anyone's dismissal as fact. When I have to
Yeah.
really like feel grateful that I was that kind of a kid
Yeah.
because
That's
so many
awesome
of us
because,
dismiss it.
yeah, I was going to say most children who have any kind of sensitivity to stuff, like between their family and then society, it just kind of pushes it out of them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And so many of my, like, I think so many listeners can relate to that of like what how crushing that is to be told your truth is invalid. And so that pain is really, I think, what more than the fear of the spirits or anything, it is that pain that says, okay, I am just going to ignore it, I guess. And then we're very good
Yeah.
at putting up shields. People think, oh, how do I learn how to do that? I say, oh, honey, you've probably been doing it your whole life. You know,
Yeah.
it's much harder to learn how to know they're there and take them down.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that because I was at an event this past weekend and I had my 12-year-old son with me, and he's grown up with all of this. He's not only accepting of it, but like he has absolute faith. I don't know how else to phrase that.
Mhm.
So
Perfect
we
trust.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Perfect trust. So we joke all the time, like if you want magic accomplished, just ask him to do it because he has no doubt that he can and that it
Mm.
works. And so he gets amazing results. And I was talking with one of my friends at this event, and we were both kind of agreeing that that's the difference when you're raised in a situation or with a family that is just completely accepting and reinforces, no, this is good. This is how you do this. Yes, you can manifest things in your life, even if, maybe the adults don't want you to. He's big into blizzards for snow days, for example, but he is a kid, so it's fine. But in contrast to adults, where when you come into trying to do these practices, whether it's witchcraft or anything related to like that genre of thing, as an adult, and you've had so many years of people telling you you're powerless, you can't do this, magic isn't real, trying to reprogram to get that out and have that like pure childlike belief is so hard. So
Yeah.
hard. So yeah, it's very cool to see people who got to grow up with it to a degree of acceptance and still have that as an adult. And I have a lot of empathy for people who come to it as an adult, kind of struggling to get to that place, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Do you have any experiences you could share with us of times you've seen fairies? Like really, like with your waking eyes? Because I always have had those kind of like, I think, maybe. And then when I had my first like, oh no, that is the spirit of the land, or that is nymphs in those trees, like it's something else.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it can be a lot more intense sometimes than people anticipate. So sure, I have plenty of stories I can share. I already shared the one about the memory from when I was 5, which is probably the earliest one I can remember. But I'll give you another one. So where I live, there is sort of a local state park. A lot of witches and pagans go there. It's got some really cool history and some really cool folklore around it, very sort of pagany kind of things. And I'm not even sure when this was, 10 or 15 years ago, time just ceases to exist at a certain point, and everything was 5 years ago, but I know it was more than that. So 10 or 15 years ago, there was a very dry summer and there was a fire, and not the entire park burned, but a good percentage of it burned. And it was very sad, obviously. And because we had used it as like ritual space and for, just connecting to the land there, I wanted to go and just leave an offering and sort of apologize because the fire was human caused. I think they'd
Mm,
figure out someone threw a cigarette or something in the middle of a drought because humans can be like
yeah.
that. And I went with an apple and some water, just some pure water. And I remember like putting the apple down on the ground and then pouring the water out. And I was saying something like, I am so sorry this happened. You know, the land will heal in time. And I basically apologizing on behalf of humanity for this very not accidental kind of thing. And I looked up, and standing like 10 feet away from me was this land spirit. She looked like maybe like a teenage girl, that kind of age range, and just glaring at me, like clearly
Mm,
very angry. And I remember almost like feeling the anger from her. And I just sort of acknowledged, like, you have every right to be angry. I'm sorry your home was burned down. I'm sorry this place was so damaged. And let this little offering, even though it's very small, be sort of an apology and a sign that not all humans are like the one that caused this. And the anger sort of pulled back a little bit. It was still there, but I didn't feel as like I'm in danger because the
Yeah.
initial vibe was like I'm in danger. Um, that pulled back a bit, and then I just sort of slowly backed away until she disappeared. But that was probably one of the most intense experiences I
Wow.
had, and specifically with the land spirit. So yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, we have in Greece, where until very recently I was living full time and now I'm splitting the year, but it is I incredible how many wildfires we have in like the true sense of the word. Like you just can't really believe how many we will
Mm,
have. We will literally sometimes have over 80 in a single day. Because Greece is not, a lot of people think it's just a couple of islands. Like it's a pretty large mainland. It's like the width or length, I should say, of like maybe Maine to New York
mm,
and the width of maybe the same. And then you have over 2,000 islands. So sometimes these fires break out and there is literally no one living on an island. And so, it's a natural one. We know that. But over
yeah.
80%, they actually I reckoned last year 86% of wildfires were arson. And not
Wow.
arson in the literal like, haha, let me do, but cigarettes. Most Greeks
Right.
smoke. So
Yeah.
literally just flicking butts out the window. It's unbelievable that
Yeah.
humans
The
can't learn.
carelessness.
Yeah, it's just unreal. And last year they actually were like, I'll put a video on the YouTube version of this interview. You'll see it, but it was like less than 2 kilometers from my house. I was literally
Wow.
on my roof watching it, and there's nothing I could do. All I could do was try to drum the wind spirits down. That was
Yeah.
the best I could do. That and have my cat carriers ready because we lived by the sea. So that was our plan is we would get in the car, drive into the water with the car with the animals and just
Yeah.
stand as far out as we need to. Which sometimes
Yep.
the heat is so intense that even that isn't a good solution. So
Yeah.
people have no idea how simple it is. Just have a little cigarette ashtray in your car if you have to smoke and just do that. Like it's insane. And so yeah, that rage of the land spirits and the fairies, it's so real. And yeah.
And justified. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I I really do believe that like because I know sometimes people will hear like land spirits get angry and people will get very defensive and be like, well, they, shouldn't be angry at me. I didn't do anything. I'm trying to help. And it's like, well, but humans in general caused this and they have a right to be angry, you know.
Yeah.
Well, they have a right to feel whatever they're feeling. And I think sometimes we need to kind of take the human out of the equation in ourselves and not look at it like I personally am special and individual and different,
Yeah.
and just
Exactly.
acknowledge like this was a horrible thing. And of course they're angry, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. People taking it personally.
Yeah. It's funny actually, now that we're talking about this, the only other time I've been somewhere where I felt that level of like anger from the land spirits was at a really old junkyard where there was a ton of
Mm.
like contamination into the
Hmm.
soil and rust and oil and other car fluids that had just soaked in. And I remember going there and being like, I can't stay here because everything is just so angry. This like
Yes.
low level,
Sludgy
percolating
feeling.
anger. Yes,
Yes, I know
yes.
exactly what you mean. On my retreat this year, my Delphi retreat each year, I take people to usually this year it's next year it's going to be pretty cool because this year I got to explore a lot of unexcavated sites that are
Mm,
perfectly legal to visit. There's just not enough money or Greeks, quite frankly, we're a declining population, to take care of them and excavate
yep.
them and run them as archaeological sites. So they're just vacant. And so they're amazing places to go because you can bring your drum and you can spend all day communing, which at a paid archaeological site they actually seek you out if you're trying to worship and they make sure you don't. So it's like the
Yeah.
whole thing. So it's really amazing. I've been led by the land to some of these places now. And so we were driving between two of them. So we were out in pretty rural areas and we came across what was clearly like a makeshift junkyard for people. And
Yeah.
we didn't at first realize what it was. We thought maybe it was just like trash that had blown in. But everybody, literally, I remember everybody in my car just stopped. And we just all of a sudden felt this weird feeling. Because, we're on a retreat, you're very activated, like you're very aware.
Yeah. Very
And
open.
yeah, they were like, "Oh, is it safe here?" And I really did. I was like, is it safe? Like I was like, there's no way it's not. This rural Greece. We don't have issues like we don't have enough people for there to be people that are the problem. And then I realized, oh, it's the land. The land
Yeah.
is sludgy and nasty. Like there was even this irrational thought of like, I hope my car can make it through this. But it was just a normal road. Why would I think that at all? But it was
Yep.
the energy was
Just that
so,
energy.
yeah, muddy and not in
Yeah.
the cleansing, beautiful, muddy way. Like just,
Yeah. Yeah. Almost
yeah.
that like sucking you down kind of mud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. 100% exactly the same. Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who says there are no fairies where I live? There's no land spirits where I live.
It's funny actually because I wrote a book on Celtic fairies in North America in part because
That's
people,
exactly what I was
yeah,
thinking.
people used to say that all the time and be like, well, you can't find them except this one specific place. And first of all, land spirits are everywhere. And I mean, even in cities, because that's another thing I run into all the time where people are like, well, I want to connect to land spirits, but I don't have time to get out into nature. And I'm like, we are nature. We are in
Yeah.
nature.
Guess what
Wilderness you might not be
your
able to
land
get to.
Yeah, guess what your house was built on? Land.
Right. Surprise.
You're not the
Um,
Jetsons.
yeah. And, anywhere you are, even New York City, which, is a very intense, energetic place to go to, but there's still land spirits there. There are still spirits that are embedded in the earth and in the rocks and the trees. And, you know, I'm kind of showing my viewpoint on what land spirits are here, but they're all around us wherever we are. When we talk about fairies, they're kind of layered into that concept. So we have land spirits as beings, in my definition, who are attached to places, who are attached to, this rock or that stream or this section of land. And obviously, you can have more than one in any given place. It's like an ecosystem of spirits, basically. And then you have the fairies who are coming from the other world, from a different reality, however we want to view that, because there's a ton of opinions on what and where the other world is. But they also come into our reality and have a home here and often are attached to particular places. So much like humans, you know, not all humans, but a lot of humans, you have a place you live. This is where your home is, and you might travel and you might move around and you might even move your home sometimes. But we tend to be kind of local specific ourselves as well. And I kind of see fairies the same way, that they tend to have their homes, they tend to have their places that they prefer to be, or you're more likely to encounter them, but they can move. They can move their homes, even they can travel just because they feel like it. We have so much folklore about fairies traveling across the ocean, even fairies moving homes, especially at certain times of year. So they're this interesting kind of contradiction where they're both like rooted and grounded in human world places, but they're also mobile and able to go where they want to go. And I found in my own experience and studying the folklore and talking to people that when communities move, sometimes individuals too, but particularly when communities move, spirits tend to go with communities that they're connected to or associated with. So when you have places where a significant community move has happened, you tend to also find spirits that were there originally, spirits of the land, and this extra like layer of fairies that maybe were not there originally but are there now. If that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah. So how do you see, because I've been working on this myself, is like, where do we lay, where do we differ? So when I was writing Sacred Wild, my book that's coming out in November, that's all about like working with spirits of the land, I kind of
Can't wait to read
categorize,
it.
oh, I'm so excited for your thoughts on it because I agree with everything you're saying about how they're kind of, how we might need to categorize for our human brains that need logic, how we might need to
Yes.
categorize these spirits a little bit. Um, but also the nuance in that. And one of the things I
Yes.
didn't get to in this book, but as I work on the next book already, because I am, it's coming through in deeper ways there, is how the zeitgeist, there's like kind of three things. One thing I do touch on in Sacred Wild is the egregore of a
Mm-hmm.
place and how that's like the layered conversation of a place. It's the noise that is the place. And so the most recent things are going to be higher up on there. More tragic things, more long-lasting things are going to be more accessible. Like New York City is a good example. Like you've got the human egregore
Yep.
big time. And then you have like certain places where there was like serial killers and whatever, that's there too. And then you have like places where there were riots, where there were protests and so there's like
Mhm.
layers of that egregore. Then there's like the zeitgeist, which is like this temporary fairy that I'm still
Mhm.
like, how is that related? And then, like what you're saying, like Astoria, you go to Astoria, there's more Greeks there than Greece. I mean, literally, there's like more Greeks living in Astoria than
Right.
there are in the country of Greece outside of Athens City. Like, that is like an actual truth.
Yeah.
So, and it's Greece. I mean, like, I had a friend I met here and she didn't speak any English and she was like, oh, yeah, I went to Astoria. It was no problem. Nobody spoke English. Like, and it
Yeah.
feels like Greece, you know?
I've heard that Woodlawn is like that for the Irish in New York City, that
Oh,
it's like a pocket Irish community. Yeah. So New York's a great example because there's
yeah.
so much layered there. You have the land spirits that have been there for, millions of years. You have indigenous spirits connected to, the tribal nations that were there originally. And then you have so many layers of different immigrant communities who've come in and established their own areas. Because, of course, there's like 8.5 million people in New York City. And you have the egregores and you have, yeah, that zeitgeist spirit, um, which that one's a fascinating one because it's always struck me that it's sort of continuous in the sense of it's one being, but it changes very quickly with that zeitgeist, with like what is going on, what's in the air right now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, lots of interesting stuff happening. And I think, and I'm glad you mentioned the word nuance earlier, because I think that that's exactly the thing, is that people interested in this have to approach this with an understanding that there is so much nuance to everything. And there's rarely straightforward answers. Like if I was going to Central Park in New York and I encountered a land spirit, of course, that makes sense. If I encountered like a Revolutionary War spirit, um, whether that's a ghost or like an egregore in one of those really deep layers, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. If I encountered like a kitsune, a Japanese fox spirit, I'd be like, sure, you know, um, that it literally could be pretty much anything in that place at this point because of all those layers and all that interaction and all those spirits. And it's fascinating. I can't handle New York City, for the record, as I'm saying all of this and making it sound lovely, because it's too much.
Yeah, I know.
the, the,
It's exactly. Even the Parthenon
yeah,
in Athens, I do not go. I don't, people are like, oh, you should bring a retreat there. I said, well, one, I facilitate immersions. Like, I want us to be able to get into ritual. I want us to get into trance. I want you to hear my drum and be transported. Can't do that when there are, I
right.
think they said there's 200,000 visitors a day to the
Wow.
Acropolis. And in the past 4 years since COVID, they've started making you kind of go through this like cattle chute. You can't just explore it either. So it's
Right.
a little claustrophobic. And truthfully, the land there is just so aggressively angry. And the people, the other thing about Greece that adds to the egregore that's problematic is people who work for ancient sites are
Mhm.
government employed as like if you're on the unemployment list, they pull you in to work at an ancient site. So they're not people with
Okay.
archaeology degrees. They're not people who want to be there. Most of the time, they're pissed off because most Greeks don't have cars. So they're trying to figure
Yeah.
out a way to get to this place that's really far away, and it's the only way they can stay on their unemployment. And
Yep.
so, like, the anger of being a person who works there is intense, and they hate being there. And like, so that really that's like so
Yeah.
sad because like how many Westerners would be thrilled to just like if we gave them room and board, they would be like, I'll work all summer at the Acropolis and just be in that energy. Like so many people, but in Greece, it's there.
It's not like
Nobody
that.
wants to be there. Yeah, and it's like seasonal, so you might only be there for 2 weeks. So there's just a lot of turnover and not a lot of like I always say, like I want to be places where people want to be there. Like in
Yes.
general,
Yeah.
like it just makes a
Um,
difference.
I'm kind of glad we're talking about some of like the more difficult or complicated land spirits. Because I think so many times when people have conversations like this, there's a sort of a natural tendency to focus on the good and the positive and like, oh, go to this place, it's amazing. And, the truth is, there are places that are angry. There are places that
Yeah.
have, spirit layers to them that are wounded or really don't like humans for usually some good reasons. Um, and I think that that's a conversation that we maybe need to have more of, like, and also for people who are into witchcraft or paganism or spirituality in any way that emphasizes these sort of connections, just some awareness that like just because we want to go to a place doesn't necessarily mean we should or that that place is going to want us there. And I think too many people maybe try to push through stuff like that and be like, well, this is I've saved up and planned this trip to say the Acropolis. I swear I can speak English at least. Yes. And when they get there, the energy's not right and they're getting a headache and it just they don't feel well, but they're like, I'm going to push through and I'm going to make myself connect to this place. And usually then it doesn't work well. It's not good. Um, and I think if we were all sort of more open to the idea that sometimes, no matter how much we want something, it's not going to work out or the energy is not right for us. And it's okay. It's okay to just go somewhere else. Like you said, even go somewhere that's not famous or, doesn't have thousands and thousands of tourists putting their energy into it, all the time. Because I know so many people who plan trips and then get so tunnel visioned about, I have to go to this location. I have to connect to the spirits of this particular place. And sometimes that's not what the spirits want.
Yeah, or it's maybe the bad experience is why you were called there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Well,
even
then again,
more.
the nuance, like,
Hmm.
you know, be open to possibilities even when they're not good, I guess, is the
Yeah.
moral
And
here.
other times it might surprise you the other way around. Like when I went to Pompeii, I went to see Pompeii. I wasn't really thinking like let me connect to the spirit of the land because truthfully, like what a horrifying experience to have
Right.
happened there. Like I was kind of shielded going in. And I was really surprised that the Temple of Apollo was very much present in there. I was at a
Cool.
really deep questioning of like, should I keep doing Seeking Numina? Like, is it working? Is anyone getting anything from this? Like, just, those like existential, like,
Yeah.
why am I even the one doing it? Like, maybe I'm not the right one. And I was like, if I'm supposed to do this, because Apollo had been working with me a little bit, I didn't even really think, oh, maybe there's a Temple of Apollo at Pompeii. I like it just happened that I was there and I was with my family actually. I was with my brother and he and my parents were off kind of like on their own. So it was the only time in the whole day that it happened like that, that I was on my own. It
Hmm.
was just, it was just really fortuitous that that's when I came across this Temple of Apollo. So I took it to be a chance to go in and spiritually connect. And Apollo had been working on with me on like being more comfortable being seen and all those things that
Mhm.
are important when you're a podcaster and then budding YouTube podcast and all these things. And I was like, I need a sign, man. Like, Apollo, like, help me. Like, give me one good reason I should keep going. And
Right.
nothing happened. I got nothing. I felt nothing. I was like, oh man. I felt his presence, and that's why I started the question. And then I didn't get the sign I was looking for. I was looking for birds. I was looking for clouds. I was looking for sun. I was looking
Right.
for everything. Nothing. No sign.
Anything.
So I finally leave. It's almost getting time to meet up with everybody again. And as I step outside the threshold of the temple, I get a ping on my phone, and I got my first patron on Patreon.
I love it. I
It
love
was
it.
like the most powerful like sign I think I've ever gotten in such an instantaneous way. And I was like, okay, I'm here. And I thank God. I mean, that was 4 years ago. Like I can't imagine if I
Yeah.
hadn't continued.
That is so cool. Yeah, I love stuff like that. And I think that, some of that, which again, like I encourage more people to consider this, you just sometimes have to trust, you
Hmm.
know, like ask for a sign and then wait and see. And I'm glad he encouraged you to keep going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know
To,
it really is like, yeah, like these callings that we're pushed that feel pushed on us sometimes. Sometimes we do hit our like anybody out there who's like, "Oh, I feel really called to this thing, but why me?" But I feel really called to this thing, but why me? It's like that is not
yeah,
really your prerogative. it's coming to you. Like I always loved the approach that the ancient Greeks and the Romans had, that like an idea is sentient. We
Yeah.
called it the genius. We called it the daemon. It comes to you to co-create with you because you can bring it into physical being. Who are you to question that spirit? If you're feeling excited by it and you know it's going to enrich your path and it just, why would you say no just because of insecurity or imposter syndrome or, these very human m modes of being?
Yeah. I think I agree with you, first of all, but yeah, I think that too many people self-sabotage,
Yeah.
that idea of like, well, this is too big for me, this is too much, it's too complicated. And sometimes you just have to have that trust that if this idea has come to you, if this genius, this spirit has come to you, there's a reason for that. And even if you only end up being the first step in that idea coming to fruition, that's still important. That still has value. And I'll give you a personal example of my own. When I was in Iceland in 2018 with my friend Kat Heath and a group of other people, we had myself and my friend Kat and my friend Mel and then one of Kat's friends. We had this very random, very intense spiritual experience. And while it was all happening, we realized that it was happening at a point when the Pleiades constellation, star cluster, and I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, by the way, is was just on the horizon. It's called the Achronical Rising. It happens in September. And afterwards, I got this very intense feeling of like, I need to come up with a ritual cycle based on that constellation, based on the Pleiades. And I went to my friend Kat and I'm like, I feel like this is important. I feel like this timing is important and it connects with fairies and that there's a reason this ritual cycle needs to be developed. But who am I to do this? I'm terrible at math and it's a lot of trying to calculate dates and timing. I'm not good with any kind of astronomy or astrology or anything related to any of that. And I did have a serious moment of like, I don't feel like I'm the person to do this. I don't know enough about it. I don't even know where to begin, to learn about it. But the idea was so present and sort of already half formed. And I ended up being like, you know what, I'm just gonna write about it and I'll put it out on my Patreon and my blog, and we'll just see what happens. I was literally, I had no expectations. I'm like, no one might care about this at all. But, like with you, there's this, I feel like I need to do this. It came to me for a reason. No one else is talking about stuff like this. And I ended up developing a ritual cycle based on four particular points with the Pleiades during the year. And then it turned out a whole bunch of other people were also interested in this and started doing the rituals and having some really great reactions and energy and stuff from them. And it sort of took on a life of its own, which is what I always wanted anyway. And then other people were innovating and adapting and adding other dates. And it was just amazing to watch where it grew from that.
Wow.
And none of it would have happened if I had let that self doubt win and just been like, this is too big for me. I can't do this,
Mm.
and I only ended up being the first step in it, but, it
Wow.
still made a
Yeah.
difference. It still got it out there. So, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
That's huge. That's amazing. That's really cool too. I've been thinking a lot about the Pleiades because
Hmm.
there's like the Pleiades, like the seven stars, and then there's also the Pleiades, which were priestesses of the oracle in Greece.
Oh, cool.
How would they not be related? I feel like they have to be. So that's been something
Yeah.
kind of I've been mulling over for the past, really just the past month or so, because I went to Dodona, which is the first oracle site in all of Greece, where they
Oh, that's
actually
so
would.
cool.
Oh, it's unreal, this place. Like I could have spent the rest of my life there. If it wasn't 15 euros to get in, I would have stayed and gone every day for like 2 weeks. Like it really was like unbelievable. I spent 7 hours just basically meditating, journaling, walking around in like walking meditations. And it was wild too because when I first got there, there was like 7 or 8 different student groups, and I was like, man, they're loud, they're whatever, and
Yeah.
they all cleared out like within minutes of me sitting down, and then they didn't come back. Like it shouldn't have been possible, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and the way that these priestesses worked, the Pleiades, was we don't know the particulars of the ritual, of course, we never seem to, right? But they would interpret the rustlings of a sacred oak,
Huh.
and they
Oh,
would
I
be
like that.
barefoot and they would sleep beneath the tree. And the other thing that is very interesting because ancient Greece is often considered, and it is, like the ancient Greece we know most about, like the 300 BC and onwards, ancient Greece, it was very patriarchal. The priestesshood was bought, it was like, and it was based on your class, it was things like that. But before that, the archaic period, like people think of ancient Greece as like some like singular thing, not even close. Like Homer lived 1,400 years before the Orphic hymns were written.
Wow.
So, and people will just put them piecemeal together in a ritual, and that's great. You can do that, but like painting the wide brush of ancient Greece and like saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
ancient Greece was patriarchal," is like, that's like saying like North America is Native American. Well, actually, guys, bad news
Right.
about the past 200 to 400 years. So
Yeah.
like it's really interesting to recognize that, and Dodona is a place that you confront that face on because there were priestesses and priests sleeping beneath that tree interpreting
Okay.
these rustlings. So really interesting. And we don't know how, we don't know if they had different titles for each other, we don't know why. Then there's this suggestion that they actually had like singing bowls, like they actually
Hmm.
had iron bowls or silver bowls
Yeah.
that were either on the tops of pillars or in the ground. So it was all about the wind spirits, and so it's
Interesting.
just very interesting. Yeah, like and so the like thinking of the Pleiades, like how they travel, and then wind spirit, like I don't know, there's just something there. Everything I'm doing, like my coven is the eclectic fairy tradition, and we evolved out of Wiccan tradition through the Anderson fairy line, and then my high priestess, Lady Emberstorm, was initiated by Ryan Foxwood. So we have a lot of eclectic, hence the eclectic
Yeah, lots
tag.
of
Um,
influences.
yeah, connections to land in all different ways. But the thing that's common to everyone in our lineage is always the spiral.
Mhm.
And I just feel like that was so endemic as well to like like there's just something about the spiral and fairies.
Agreed, agreed. Yeah, and we don't know very much at all about pre-Christian Ireland
Yeah.
for, obvious, I would think obvious reasons, but I'm saying that and I'm like, people might not know, but because we don't have anything written before the Christian period. And the archaeology, they didn't have any form of writing. You have the Ogham, which was an alphabet that developed based off of Latin. So it's still kind of later in the scheme of
Brand
things.
spanking new.
Yeah, as these
2,000
things
years
go.
max.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But what we do have on a lot of these Neolithic sites and these Bronze Age sites is that spiral. The
Yeah.
spiral shows up. And of course, everyone has different theories about what it represents. We really have no way to know for sure, but that universality of the spiral as a symbol, that you can just find it in so many places and usually like significant, important places. Like you have the triple spiral showing up at Shianbroga, Newgrange, in Ireland,
Mhm.
which is one of like the main sites that people are familiar with. It's reconstructed. So for people, if you do go there, you see pictures of it. That is not how it used to look historically. That was one archaeologist's vision of what he thought it might have looked like. But even outside of that, like there's evidence of that place being used for different forms of worship going back into the Neolithic period. There's Neolithic, there's Bronze Age, there's Iron Age, there's like everything. So we know it was a hugely significant site, and it has this beautiful giant, they call it a curbstone, in front with the triple spiral on it.
Yeah. And even in Malta, you see red ochre from Phoenicia, most likely, being used on the ceilings of an oracle chamber in the Hypogeum, which was like combined ancestor veneration space and ritual space for weddings everything from weddings to funerals happened in this underground space that took over 4,000 years to be carved. So like something like 27 generations to
Wow, that's
100
amazing.
generations, depending how long the people might have lived, created this space. And it's literally, again, it's the same thing. It's the spirals, and they actually have like a double spiral that looks identical. When I was in um, Crete and Santorini, which were Minoan cultures, matriarchal cultures in Greece, and when I was in Thebes in the mainland. So
Mm.
very, very far away places, they had the same exact double spiral on grave stelas and temple donations, like these big, like donated, like by the people at the time.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. I
It's
love it.
unreal. And Mycenaean, I saw this little statue of a woman, and she had two spirals right on her chest. I'll put it on the
Ah,
video here, but yeah, it's just wild.
fascinating. Yeah. It's I love things like that where even if we don't understand them, like we don't understand why they're so universal, we don't understand what they maybe, meant, what significance they had, but they're everywhere and they were significant somehow. And it's a little bit of a mystery, but it's also something you could still connect to today,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in the Sacred Places podcast. I feel like we covered so many wonderful topics, and keep me posted on future books. I'd love to have you back to discuss more fairy things. Tell everybody how they can keep up with you and, get your books and all that good stuff.
Sure. So I am on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, which I know everyone hates now, but I'm still on it for the academia side of it. Blue Sky, pretty much I'm on all the social media, always under my name, so it's Morgan Daimler. And I always say this now to people because there's so many unfortunate scammy stuff going on. I do not do personal readings. I do not reach out to people to tell them that I have received some kind of message from any higher spirits or anything like that. I just do not do those things. So if you find me on social media and then start getting messages about sending me money, that's not me. I will never do that. That is not me. Just to be clear. But otherwise, yeah, I'm all over social media, pretty easy to find. My best suggestion for the majority of my books is to go to my publisher's website. That's Moon Books under collectiveinc.com, because on each book there will be a page where you can get directed to places to purchase them. And you can buy the ebooks directly from my publisher's website, which sometimes is a little easier. I do have a selection of self-published books, and those, unfortunately, your best bet's going to be Amazon, and I apologize for that. It just
Yeah,
self-publishing is a tough market, and there's not a lot of options if you want to actually have any range with the books. So yeah, I'm kind of a little bit of everywhere with
awesome.
everything.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you. And I hope we get to cross paths in this physical plane someday, since we're sort of kind of
Yeah.
near each other in the East Coast. So,
Yeah. Well, you've got me very interested in the tours you do in Greece now. So
oh yeah. Oh, join us. Thank you for seeking Numina with me today. Join me at patreon.com/Elise Wells to support this show and get access to a library of rituals, exclusive videos, meditations, and more. To learn more about my upcoming retreats, book a tarot reading, or learn with me in workshops, classes, or mentorship, visit seekingnumina.com.